So the sustentaculum talus has another feature about it that I want to talk about today. And here it is. Here's this stout little ledge here. And in the first video when I talked about the foot, I talked about how the sustentaculum talus was located really quite directly underneath the shaft of the lower leg. But in truth, it's really the main body of the heel, this part, and the ankle that sit most directly underneath the leg. And there's this other feature of the sustentaculum talus that I'd like to talk about, and that is the way in which, if you can see how, here's the ledge here, and if I tilt the thing back, can you see how this particular place right here, the sort of forward edge of the sustentaculum talus, if you can see how that forward edge is kind of, it's tilted a little bit forward, yeah? And that little feature to the ledge has something to do with providing the longitudinal stability through the foot as you're standing, but also as you're lifting your heel to take a step, yeah? That little detail is something you can use in your practice with yourself, because the longitudinal stability in the foot is really something to consider. It's almost like looking down if you look down the barrel of the gun, you want the bullet to be able to travel straight down through the barrel and not glance off to the side. It's the same thing with the way you organize yourself for your skeletal support. You want the lift of the heel coming in such a way that it preserves this longitudinal direction of the support through the foot so that the integrity of the bones in the foot are supported and not contorted. Let's see if I can get this a little snugged in there a little bit better. There are a lot of people, when they take a step, if you watch the way that the foot leaves the ground, the heel here in the back, when it leaves, as it's coming away, it tends to go out there. Yeah? As soon as the leg starts to lift or the knee starts to bend, it's as if the foot is lifting, but it's already starting to peel off to the side. And you can feel that that really doesn't take advantage of the way in which this part of the foot needs to deliver the force that way. Yeah? It needs to be able to lift and really drive the foot forward, to drive the ankle forward, so that all these connections through the ankle are really snug with each other and gliding smoothly. Yeah? So you can look at this in your own walking. If you stand up and you take a few steps, or you just put one foot a little behind the other with the heel on the ground, and you slowly lift the back heel, you can test this for yourself and see whether you really have the longitudinal integrity through the foot, or whether there's this tendency you have to kind of let the foot flop out to the side, or whether it tends to just collapse in as you go to lift it. Yeah? It's a very interesting little game to play with yourself to see if you can maintain a very comfortable but snug feeling up underneath this part of the ankle. And remember, we talked about before the role that the cuboid plays in this too. Here it is from the outside. This feeling that the cuboid can snug up underneath that and participate in the support as well is hugely important, because of course from the bottom you can see here the sustentaculum talus is back underneath the ankle, and the cuboid, the place in the cuboid that sits underneath the front of the ankle, and these three toes here. So they really all function together as a unit. I don't like the word rigid, but you really do want them to feel like they function as a gliding, sliding unit as they come away from the ground. And this little detail right here on the sustentaculum talus is a really interesting one to play with, because there's a sense in which you want the foot to be lifting and for there to be this forward quality in the foot. When the heel lifts in walking, the heel doesn't just only lift up, it doesn't just simply go up. That wouldn't work too well. It has to go up and forward, so it moves in a curved path through space. When a person lifts the heel lifts and is arcing forward. And that direction is also taking place all the way up through the leg, all the way up through the spine, and all the way up into the top of your head. So you can almost imagine the person's head floating forward and up as they walk. And this little detail in here is something good to play with. How do you play with it? Well, you get quiet with yourself and you form some sort of an image. If you want, you can use a picture on your phone, or you can use an anatomy app until you get a clear sense. Then you can make little movements of your own foot where you try to lift and find ways in which you feel that little lift, that little snugging quality up under these parts of the foot. It shouldn't be too extreme. It should just be a little inkling, a little beginning. And then you can practice with one foot behind the other, slowly lifting the heel and just seeing if you maintain that snugness back in there, or whether you tend to do it in a way that's a little more sloppy. So that's the detail for today, is just the way in this little ledge is not just supporting up through this way, but because of the angle of this front section right through here, the way that sits snugged up underneath the ankle, think about how that participates in keeping the longitudinal integrity of the foot as you're lifting the ankle. Yeah? If you'd like to see what it looks like underneath all this, I'll put this right up to the camera. If I take away the heel, you can see underneath the talus are these very interesting points of contact, these curved points. And there's the point for the sustentaculum talus, that little one there underneath the front part of the talus. And this huge back one in the back, I'll turn it so you can see how it's arced and curved under there. That's the subtalar joint. And how that sits, let's put this person's ankle back together, how one sits flush underneath the other. Yeah? So you get this clean glide going through, the ankle gliding through that garage we talked about last time of the lower two bones. Okay? So you're just starting to think about these longitudinal connections through the foot so that when you walk, when you step, you've got a really stable and beautifully gliding foot underneath yourself.